Vinny Magliulo ably filling in and dutifully filling in. We appreciate you making the effort this morning. Thank you, sir.
Anything for the team, especially my buddy Chris.
For the ball club.
That's right.
And so what Chrissy usually does at this time, after we go through the lines, people, we tuck people in, and then we tuck them in, they put on their nightcap, and then Chrissy tells a story. Some are funny, some are fascinating, some are insightful, some are dark. Either way, they're always entertaining. You, too, of course, have been in this racket, as we like to say, for so many years. Yeah. And you met Chrissy how many years ago?
Met Chris back in 1979-80. So I'll tell a story in honor of Chris, who's not feeling well today, so I think it's appropriate. The Barbary Coast, which, again, for those who may be just joining us, is now the Cromwell Hotel on the corner of Las Vegas Boulevard and Flamingo, opened March 2nd, 1979. I happened to be there on opening night as a young dice dealer with all of barely 4 months' experience under my belt. And they cut the ribbon, and as I looked up at the door when they cut the ribbon, I looked down, and there was so much cash on the layout, I couldn't really see the layout, and I froze. I was literally frozen, and there was an old veteran boxman said, "Son, bring it in. You ain't at the Royal Inn no more. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Las Vegas Boulevard." So I'm shaking. I'm counting money and everything. And so there I am on Las Vegas Boulevard as a 22-year-old and trying to do everything procedurally correct. A few months go by, and so what I would do is take my breaks down, and we had a little staff dining room, and went downstairs one day, and it was really crowded on this particular day, and there was one seat available at a table, and I said, "Hey, is this seat taken?" The guy says, "No." I said, he says, I said, "Hey, are you new here?" He goes, "Yeah, I just kind of started, came from the Stardust." I said, "Yeah, what's your name?" "My name's Chrissy." It's Chris Andrews. Mm-hmm. So we met. I said, what do you got? Really? Wow. So we hit it off right away. And then, so I go to get my lunch, and I for those who may be listening, I love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on whole wheat. It's like my staple. PB&J's on whole wheat.
Side note.
Right? There we go. Twin, he can relate to it. And to this day, that, hey.
What just happened?
Easy. So and Chris is looking at me like, "What is that?" So PB&J with cold milk and everything like that, and we hit it off and he's like, "You gonna eat that? Like, what are you?
Yeah.
What are you, like in sixth grade?" So he's we're ribbing each other. So all right, we go back. I go back to the pit. I'm dealing everything. So the next thing I know, now Michael Gaughan, for those who are listening, Michael Gaughan, the owner here of the South Point, also owned the Barbary Coast. And he had the very first cross-training program in Las Vegas, but it had no name, had no official procedure or name. This was the cross-training program. Make sure you're good at what I hired you for, and then go learn whatever you want.
Okay?
Learn as much as you like.
Secondarily.
So I learned other table games. I learned I was primarily a dice dealer, but I learned how to deal roulette. I could deal 21, mini baccarat, and things like that. But always had an interest, and as when I grew up, obviously, in the New York metropolitan area, spent a lot of time at various tracks.
What
a shock!
Wow.
And I had several uncles who were personally responsible for many renovations at Yonkers, Belmont, and Roosevelt Raceway, and so and also had an affinity for certain math, primarily point spreads and things like that. Again, another shock. And so I hung around the sports book a lot. So I would take my break for my PB&J. We would work an hour on the game, take 20 minutes off. I'd go for one break down to the Helps Hall, get my lunch, and my other breaks I spent in the sports book. And Jimmy Vaccaro, who was running the sports book at the time, I was like, "Jimmy, he goes, yeah, just learn what you want. Just go, just stay out of the way. Just don't get
typical Jimmy fashion.
Jimmy's
get out of the way.
He's
kid.
like, fine, basically, don't touch anything just right now. So, and to me, I'm like, $7 to $5, $40, 7 to 5. All right, it's a 5 and 9 place bet. Oh, they're $1.40 favorite. The Tigers are $1.40 favorite. All right, so I'm just equating in my mind dice payouts to baseball payouts at the time. So I go up there one day, and here's this guy standing there. The guy, Chris, he goes, "Hey, I thought you were a dice dealer." I said, "I am." He goes, "What the hell are you doing over here?" I said, "I'm just trying to, just learn a little bit." He goes, "Oh, all right. Well, what did Jimmy tell you?" You said, "Just stay at him." He goes, "Yeah, stay at him. Right? Just stand over there." And then every now and then he would say, "Well, what about this? What about that?" So that's how Chris and I met, and he, of course, went on to get recruited by Mr. Nelson up at the Club Calneva, and ran it, and was a part owner for a good number of years. Jackie Gaughan's recommendation to Mr. Nelson up there secured Chris's spot, and he was an absolute staple in Northern Nevada. And we stayed in touch, and we communicated on a regular basis, particularly when the Niners were really running good, and there would be a lot more. And we would always compare. When I got into the book at Caesars, I always utilized Chris as a resource in terms of how wagering was going, because typically up north, before all this networking here in the state, there was a significant, you could find as much as a 1.5, maybe sometimes a 2-point difference in extreme cases between Raider games and Niner games up north compared to down here. And so it was a great resource to be able to pick up the phone and talk to Chris at that time, as it is now. Of course, now I get to see him on almost a daily basis, which is
as we all do.
an even a bigger bonus. So
I mentioned this last week, and that's a great. I love hearing how you guys met. That's a. I mentioned briefly last week that here we are at the South Point doing, and so fortunate to have VSiN, and so fortunate to be a part of this, and so fortunate to be around you and Jimmy and Chrissy.
Thank you.
Chrissy is super humble.
Oh.
One of the things that he has not talked about, to my knowledge, at all. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he did so with Brent. Maybe he's done so on other shows, but certainly not on this show, on this air. Chrissy Andrews is responsible for some of the things that we take for granted now in the betting universe. Monday night props, the fact that there were props on Monday night games, that's all Chrissy. The fact that there are World Series matchup props. This team will play this team in the World Series.
To meet in the World Series, right.
Chrissy. Super teasers. The notion of I know mostly that manifests now as 3-team 10-pointers. He didn't come up with that one specifically, but the notion of bigger than 6 or 7-point teasers in multiple teams, Chrissy. Pleasers, the opposite of teasers, which were reverse teasers, in other words, called pleasers by folks offshore. Chris Andrews. And then, of course, Jimmy with season win totals, and it goes on and on. So we are so fortunate, and they are not braggadocious.
No, they're very, very humble guys, and it's great to share information. And again, anytime there's a consideration for a particular prop, whether it's season win totals or a prop, I always want to run it by them. They ask my opinion, which is nice. One of the greatest compliments you can get in this industry is when your colleagues and professional bettors will say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Or you have each other as a resource. You make the best prices, you make the best props, the best prices when you get the best opinions. And Chrissy and Jimmy are two of the best opinions that I know.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, Vinny. Thank you, man.